Yeah. Another thing I saw recently. So, I say so a lot, just to preface things. You guys remember that a little while ago. Well, people who are channel regulars will remember I talked a little bit about Venezuela acting very jingoistically with respect to Guyana, their very small neighbor, because they want that oil. But at the time, it didn't seem like it amounted to anything. They didn't invade yet. I mean, they voted to invade, but the government didn't go through with it. Now we're actually seeing a proper troop buildup on the border between Venezuela and Guyana. And it seems like they might make a move. Yeah, according to satellite imagery, as per the Guardian. Venezuela is expanding military bases near its border with Guyana and deploying forces to the jungle frontier as President Nicolas Maduro ramps up his threats to annex the country's oil-rich neighbors. Satellite images have revealed. He's been wishy-washy on the issue. He has pledged to not take military action when talking to like an international audience, but then at home he's been using like the jingoistic rhetoric. Ultimately, this in some ways seems pretty reminiscent of the Russian troop buildup on the Ukrainian border leading up to that war breaking out, right? It seemed kind of like a similar thing. And we know how the Russian troop buildup ended is Russia declared war on Ukraine. They invaded. I mean, to be fair, we're Guyana. I do anything to not get into Venezuelan hands. Don't want to have to wipe my ass with Venezuelan dollars. Look, Guyana actually isn't really doing anything here. Like, what can they even do, right? Except see how this goes. The international community isn't going to defend Ghana, right? And at this point, I think that actually plays a part in why Venezuela is acting the way that they are, you know? We saw the reaction to Russia invading Ukraine was actually kind of weak sauce from Europe. You know, like the aid was a little bit wishy-washy and things like that. Nice try, Dio. And of course, with Israel, the United States now has a new favorite toy, which means there's actually a lot less aid coming from America recently going into Ukraine. So it's like there's some dominoes falling on the international stage where a lot of regional conflicts have been breaking out, and you know, things have been getting more unstable on a regional level. Meanwhile, the United States is only selectively applying certain military doctrine, and like what I'm trying to get at is it seems like the rules-based international order that the United States was all in on in the early 2000s seems to be decaying because more and more countries realize that the United States does not apply those rules with any real degree of consistency. You know, like America will apply the rules in some respect to countries that it doesn't like, but we will not apply those rules to countries that we are allied with. You know, so probably some version of what happened was Venezuela kind of took note of Russia invading Ukraine, and then decided that would be a good time for them to test the waters with like building up on the Guyanan border. And you know, they also saw things like Azerbaijan invading Armenia and Israel invading the Gaza Strip, and China posturing with regards to Taiwan, and the United States A, having its hands full, B, not willing to intervene quite the same way it used to, or not, like, generally not willing to apply the rules to its allies, ergo probably less willing also to apply the rules to geopolitical opponents, and generally took note that, like, because the current, like, geopolitical order of things is headed by liberals as opposed to fascists or as opposed to socialists, the order of the day is to do nothing. I've explained this before. Liberals have an ideological predilection to sit on their hands, to not do anything, because they're institutionalists. and they haven't needed to do stuff for quite a while. Let's see, there were some exceptions with this in the early 2000s, in the 1990s, when neocons were in charge. Neocons still being liberals in some stripe, but being a lot more willing to act on the international stage, mostly through military action, sanctions, very forceful, and frankly pretty unhelpful things. But it scared enough countries in line that, like, there was sort of a chilling effect that pervaded for a few decades. Now that chilling effect is sort of melting, right? Because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because of Israel, Palestine, and whatever. And because there are no more neocons, they're just fascists and liberals, and the liberals are in charge. The United States is doing nothing. Europe is doing basically nothing. And countries that have a regional geopolitical interest that they might have otherwise wanted to act on have noticed that and have decided, well, what if we just invaded anyway? It's not like the UN is going to stop us. It's not like the United States is going to stop us. It's not like the EU is going to stop us. Not like NATO is going to stop us because we're not invading a NATO ally. That's like the one vestige of neoconservatism or like the old wave of more jingoistic internationalism that might actually matter here. And so the world outside of the NATO bloc is becoming increasingly unstable. And to a degree, even within the NATO bloc, because, countries are experiencing internal instability. So at the end of all that, I think Venezuela is gonna, in some measure, go through with this. Because, what is the United States gonna do? Probably nothing. Because that's all the liberals can think of doing. And of course, conservatives would be they would be too insane to form a coherent response. Conservatives are too busy talking about mass deporting migrants from the United States and invading Mexico. What are they going to do to Venezuela? Realistically, they would even if they chose to intervene in any way that would be tantamount to a proper response, it would be so unhinged in the way that they conduct it all, that they would incur massive backlash politically from the international community. And fascists, as insane as they are not immune to political backlash internationally. In fact, one of the key things about fascism is that they depend on the support of international capital. So basically, it seems like the relative period of peace that happened at the end of the 20th century and going into the 21st century was kind of like an aberration. It was like an unusual phenomenon that's now coming to an end. And I can only hope that, maybe things don't play out the only realistic way that they could play out according to a materialist analysis. But at the end of the day, this is a materialist analysis. I have no reason to have that hope. I have no reason to expect anything to play out in a way other than I've predicted, with Venezuela invading Guyana and the world being like, oh no, that's crazy, don't do that, that's against the human rights, and then doing jack shit. Yeah, it just seems like the movement towards fascism is also happening globally. Poor Guyana? Yeah, poor Guyana. Poor everybody, really. Poor global proletariat. It used to be a thing that regional wars were really common, and everybody would just be getting fucked all the time. But for about 50 years in the 20th century, going into the 21st century, that wasn't as much the case, but now it is again. Because like I said, that chilling effect is gone. It for a while it was we don't want to offend the world police that is America, right? As much as the world police shtick is not exactly desirable, and it's jingoistic, it is in its own, in some ways, fascistic. That deterred war from breaking out in some regions for some time. There are better ways of doing that, but that was what we had. And then now that's gone, and it's not replaced with anything better, and now we get more instability, more regional wars. And I'll maintain my prescription that this isn't going to be World War III, or I guess my prediction. The World War III isn't going to break out because it is in nobody's interest for World War III to break out. The capital class needs there to be a world in order to profit from it. So they don't want World War III. We all don't want to die, presumably, so we don't want World War III. So it's just going to be regional wars.